welcome. My name is Kelly Roth. I'm from the Department of Service Excellence, and I'll be your facilitator today. You are all here to be part of our Best Practices panel series, which is called Recognizing Excellence Around You. And so what I'd like to do before we go any further is a little housekeeping. We have surveys that we have put together, designed for you to find out what other panels would you like to hear about. And so if you don't do that now, or if you have one, please fill it out and return it at the end of the session. And then what we will do also is at about the last 10 or 15 minutes, I'd like to open it up for questions for our panelists and Joanne Grantham. And the other thing is I'd like to recognize some of the people that are in the audience here supporting me today. We have some of our Service Excellence staff. We have Cassandra Willis-Abner in the front, my director. Raise your hand. And anybody else in Service Excellence, please raise your hand. Joan? Paula? Stacy? Thank you all for, and Soraya Mary, thank you for helping. And then my partners in the very far back who helped me put together today's panel session, Patrice Baer, thank you very much for being here and helping. And so we're going to begin. So what I'd like to do is introduce Joanne Grantham, who is our UMHS employee recognition guru. And I say that because she does this for the whole health system. How many of you attended the annual ice cream social this year? Okay. Joanne's a big integral part of that. We have a recognition committee. Remember that in the future, if you ever want to be a committee member, to seek out Joanne Grantham. And if you need her information afterward, come see me. So she's going to talk about two of the organizational recognition programs that anyone can use. Maybe some of you have received one of these awards, but Joanne's going to talk about that now. So take it away, Joanne.
Good afternoon, everyone. Like Kelly said, my name is Joanne Grantham. I work in human resources for the health system, and I do chair the employee recognition initiatives here at the health system. And I won't be before you long. A lot of you do know about our institutional programs, and I'm very anxious to hear what departments are doing for recognition on the departmental level. So I'm going to get out of your way. Kelly, you need me to advance the slides? Yep. Okay. Yep. So, like Kelly said, the Making a Difference program is run through my office. How many of you are aware of the Making a Difference program and utilize it? So, just a little bit. It's very well utilized. I think last year we had close to 14,000 awards, Making a Difference awards for the whole year. So, that's a method for day-to-day recognition, peer-to-peer, patient-to-family. That's done through our online web form, as well as we have pamphlets if your department doesn't have them for patients and families to fill out, and those come to my office as well. So it's very well utilized. I would say about 50% of the awards are from patients and families, and the other 50% are peer-to-peer and staff recognition. So it provides an opportunity for rewards. Some of your departments might need some reporting to see, if recognition is very prevalent in your departments. That's something my office can do and provide reports for you all. And then there's a tier system. So say someone receives 4 or more Making a Difference awards in a calendar year, they get a silver award, so it's a silver pin. And if they receive 10 or more in the calendar year, they get a gold award. So it's a tiered award system, and it's very well utilized. They get a certificate, a pin, and a keychain. We rely heavily on our recognition liaisons who push those awards out to our employees. So once we get them in our office, those awards are sent to the liaisons for the department. So if you don't know who your liaison is, you feel free to contact me. We have over 200 recognition liaisons throughout the health system. And then those awardees are invited to a quarterly recognition reception. So we just had one in September last week. And those are very well attended. We do an off-site one and an on-site one. Our on-site is always usually in Ford Auditorium, and this past quarter, our off-site recognition reception was at the Ypsilanti Health Center. So we really try to involve our off-sites in some of our recognition efforts. And then we have other awards that are a step up from the Making a Difference awards. One that is very well utilized is our Shining Star. So Shining Stars are employees who go above and beyond in the areas of service, teamwork, achievement, and respect. That's the STAR acronym. And once we get those nominations in, as Kelly mentioned, I do have a recognition committee of about 13 people from across the institution, and I remove all names and identifiers, and they vote on those Shining Stars awards. And a lot of the stories are very heart-wrenching, and like I said, they go above and beyond. One stands out about a nurse who had a patient on a vent, and she went through the snowstorm to kind of make sure her patient had the necessities that, the things that they needed. So those are some examples of going above and beyond in those 4 areas. We do award up to 5 Shining Stars per quarter, and they get a nice trophy to display. They get a certificate, they get a $100 check, a lapel pin, and a gift certificate from the Friends Gift Shop. So it's very special, and we usually recognize those people at our quarterly receptions. So we had one this past quarter last week, and it was very good to hear that. So I'm going to step out of your way. Like Kelly said, if you have questions, I'll be here after. Like I said, I'm anxious to hear what departments are doing, and some departments don't have initiatives in their areas. So I'm someone you can contact and kind of help with some of those initiatives. If you want to start an award, if you want to really evaluate your recognition efforts in your department, feel free to contact me and I can help with that. Okay, so thank you. I'm going to have a seat.
Okay, so let's give Joanne a big hand, can we? All right, so now what you've been waiting for next is our mystery panelists. So we have the names up there, so you don't necessarily know who's who, do you? And so we will begin by having the panelists introduce themselves, their role, and how long they've been here at UMHS, and any other tidbit that they think we should know. So we'll start with Josie.
I'm Josie Aguirre. I'm the Director of Physician Relations and Call Management in the Department of Communication. I've been here for 26 years, and so I work with a diverse work group, nursing, programmers, call center agents, and data analysts, and sales people. So altogether, we represent about 45 team members.
Hi, I'm Nicole Schroff. I'm a physician in the Department of Emergency Medicine. I'm currently the Service Chief for Children's Emergency Services, and I've been here at the university since 2000.
My name is Kelly Baird Cox, and I am the Nurse Manager in Children's Emergency Services, and I have been here for 3 years and 11 months exactly today.
My name is Margot Beckerman. I'm the Assistant Director in the Vestibular Testing Center, which is part of the Department of Otolaryngology, which turns out to be a big mouthful. I'm an audiologist by training, so in my role here, I'm a clinician and do operations management in the Vestibular Testing Center. I've been an audiologist for 25 years and at U of M here for almost 3 years now.
Jeff Wensman. I'm the Clinical Technical Director out at Orthotics and Prosthetics, and that is on South Industrial Boulevard or Highway. And we also have a satellite here at the hospital. We have a small area out in Brighton, very small, and a nice presence out at Northville. And we have about 60 people in our total department.
Okay, so let's begin with the questions. All right. So, and the questions that I pose to the panel members, they can start anywhere they'd like, so we might be beeping all over the place. So I will throw out the question, and whoever'd like to go can go. So in your role as a leader, how important is it to be a champion of recognition?
Well, I would say very important. To keep 60 people happy has been a big challenge, but it's also a lot of fun. And I would say that it's, for me, it's more the day-to-day stuff than any of the big awards that really matter, but I certainly know when there's been a couple of our people who've gotten the shining stars, they do appreciate the formal program as well.
I'll just echo what Jeff said. Obviously it's very important to have recognition, but also I think to foster that culture of recognition so that as a leader, I'm not the only one recognizing staff. Staff are doing that with each other. We have a formal means of doing that. It's a standing agenda item on our monthly staff meeting for recognition, where I will recognize things that I know folks did and then throw it out to the rest of the staff to say, who did you catch in the act of doing something really awesome? And so people recognize each other in that more formal way. And then also just the informal day-to-day, just saying thank you to each other, I think is a culture that we've developed in our clinic.
Just to touch on the whole culture concept, I think that it's relative in every area. And so we work in the emergency department, and when you work in an emergency department, you're supposed to be really tough, and you're supposed to be able to handle things and take things on. And so sometimes people, when you give them recognition, they don't understand that because it sometimes is an insult to them. I'm supposed to be able to handle this. I'm supposed to be able to handle this difficult family. I'm supposed to be able to, work for 12 hours and never go to the bathroom. So I think that, it's relative. So we have to be really careful on how we recognize and help people understand culturally that those things aren't really okay, that you should be able to eat and you should be able to take a break, and that when you saw 120 patients last night, that is a lot of patients, and that's not an expectation. And I think you have to sort of establish the difference between expectations and going above and beyond. So that's what we find is a pretty big deal. And also our motto in our department is that recognition is everybody's responsibility. It's not just the leaders, and we try to change that the way people think and take the responsibility that they own that as well.
And I would echo that, and I think we as an institution do have high expectations, and we expect everyone to show up for their A game, and our patients come here with high expectations. So people, and I think it is kind of an ED culture, they come to work, they're expecting to perform at the top of their game. They know there are a lot of expectations for their patients. But I think extending, when we see recognition coming from our patients and families, as leadership, we receive those, extending them back to our employees who do work so hard, because what they come to work doing and see is their day-to-day work. This is what I do. This is what I signed up for. I think when they see patients and families recognizing how they touch their lives, it really validates their work, and it's recognition in a different sense that they receive differently than us just recognizing for them for the work they do or their peers recognizing them. Once a family has reached out and provided their thanks or acknowledged how they touched them, their lives in some way, when you share that with a staff member, I think it validates for them why they do the work they do and how they approach their work.
So I would just like to add that leadership has a very small role. It's just to provide the opportunity and model and encouragement. And I like the comments earlier related to you have to entice and encourage your staff to be at the ground level, day to day, to know that the expectation is to be encouraging, to be supportive. There's good days and there's bad days. And so by empowering your staff to recognize each other, you shouldn't be relying on the leaders to walk around, because your leaders are often in a meeting, unavailable, but those day-to-day areas of triumph, you want to encourage your team members to say thank you without being prompted. And that's just the encouragement in developing that within the culture. And I can't emphasize that enough. So if there's one thing to take away, it's build a program, but allow your team to own that program so that it will be sustainable.
Great. All right, moving on. Great. All different kinds of answers, all different kinds of things going on in each area. And so our next question is, what formal or informal programs, you can talk about one or more if you'd like, exist in your department, and how did you get started?
We've always used a number of means. Making a difference has been a big part of what we've done, both from patients and our own staff to staff. I can think of one great story of two guys who decided that they were going to win all these awards, so they started giving them to each other. So that became a bit of a game for a while. So we had to reel that in a bit. And then also potlucks that both the department itself giving a big recognition, and then also smaller ones where basically everyone pitches in and just takes a minute to breathe and stop and share with each other. And so those have all been helpful. And then the one that we added most recently really came from Paula Carci over at Med Rehab, so I'm going to give her all the credit for it. But we've employed it really successfully in that we have a big block M up on a hallway wall that everyone walks through, and staff just writes down the thing that's on the top of their mind about what someone did for them that day. And then that block M has gotten filled a number of times now, and so we're now to keep spicing it up. Now we're adding prizes that we're going to pull out of a hat from anybody who's gotten a card for the time that it took to fill the block M. And that's been very successful because it incorporates what everyone's been saying about management can't give enough recognition. It's got to come from each other, and the only way that our leadership then comes in is providing those gift cards at the end.
So in otolaryngology, as a department as a whole, we have an employee engagement and recognition committee. And through that, we have a Bravo program that was started a couple years ago now. And it consists of, everyone has a little card and you give others stickers. So it plays off of that staff recognizing each other. When you fill your Bravo card with a certain number of stickers, you turn it in and you're in a drawing for a small gift card. You get recognition in our department newsletter. And it's a certificate and a letter signed by our department chair. So there's some nice things with that. But to me, it's sustaining that along with just that day-to-day thank you. And recognizing too, some folks like recognition in different ways. So the stickers don't mean a lot to some people. I'm just doing my job, kind of what you were saying. I'm just doing my job. It's what's expected. Don't give me a sticker. It's okay. While others really thrive on that recognition, some people like more private thank yous. Some people love the public recognition. So I think as a leader, that's part of our role too, even with the departmental program, to understand what kind of recognition people like and responding to that. Because some folks are really uncomfortable with a public recognition. So responding to that as well.
So we have several programs in children's emergency services, but one that was probably the most challenging that I'd like to talk about is coming from our charge nurses. So in the emergency department, to be a charge nurse, you have to be somebody who has already the ability to exhibit leadership skills and who is really skilled themselves and who usually typically has a lot of experience. So to me, to be the charge nurse, there's already some informal recognition right there. When I come to work, I'm the charge nurse. Everybody kind of knows I'm the charge nurse, and that usually means because I'm good at my job. So to me, that already implies informal recognition for that person. But we have lots of nurses who come to work every day and stay at the bedside and care for lots of patients. And with the new Epic, we can see how many patients our nurses take care of. And so we have bedside nurses who turn over 300 and 400 patients a month. Just themselves, and that's different from the charge nurse. And so we had proposed to our charge nurses that, why don't we look at some of these nurses who are doing all of this work and see if we can figure out a way to recognize them, because without them we couldn't do our job every day. And that really angered the charge nurses, because they're like, what about us? We work really hard. We're the ones who coordinate all of this. And so it took us some time to sort of convince them to understand that really recognizing those people who are actually working for them every day is really important and very meaningful. And it was a couple of rough months. They were a little angry at us for kind of pushing them through this, but they created these certificates, and each month we have charge nurse meetings. They come to the meeting and they choose a couple staff, and they decide what things that those staff did really well that month and what they want to recognize, and they vote on who that nurse or tech will be for that month, and then they recognize them in our change of shift meetings, and they make a little gift bag and give them a certificate, and it's really been really empowering to see how those staff now react to their charge nurses for recognizing that they actually make a difference too. And I think that formal recognition does make a difference to those nurses who come to work to be the middle player in our department every day. And I think that was probably one of our most powerful, most recent efforts with recognition.
Kelly has spoken to one of our staff recognition awards. I think what we've done also in changing the culture and looking at internally how we as leadership recognize our staff members, our providers, how we encourage that change in culture for recognizing one another. We've also looked at opportunities as leadership to find programs outside of our department to bring validation and recognition to the work that our team does. And I think that validates work in a different way when we can have our work taken forward and have others judge the work that we do for what it is versus us just acknowledging work on a day-to-day basis. I think that it was mentioned last week's recognition awards. The Hope Award was presented last week, and Kelly and I took an opportunity to nominate our team for the work that they had done. We have individuals who are very invested, go above and beyond to really make our care experience a patient family-centered care delivery, and the concept of patient family-centered care was really embraced. We acknowledge that in our work, they acknowledge that in each other, and we hear it from our patients and families, but we really sought the opportunity with the Evan Newport Hope Award to bring that recognition to our team who's really been so passionate about their work, that they see as their everyday work and taking it one step above and beyond. But it was that external validation that others recognize that as well and appreciate what they contribute, not only to the patient's care and at the bedside, but the whole culture that's changed in our department. So I think it's looking for opportunities externally to bring validation and recognition to your staff as well.
So as I look out in the audience, I see a lot of office managers that oversee and supervise call center staff or phone personnel. And I'll share with you one award that we have for that frontline staff that's answering the phones, because if you, for a moment, if you just consider your frontline staff that answers the phone, they play a really critical role within the health system because they're representing the brand. They're the first point of contact. That's how our patient has the first impression. So we have an award that's called Tokens of Appreciation. And the great thing about the Tokens of Appreciation is the focus is on the team. Because if you can imagine when you call an organization, you get, depending on who you get, there's different levels of customer service. Well, what we strive for is that high level of customer service. So we don't really think that going above and beyond is an exception to the rule. It is the rule. So how do you instill your frontline staff to go above and beyond for every call that they handle? It's pretty tough. We have the tokens of appreciation, so that if their customer compliments the entire service, so in our case, it's the M-line service. M-line plays a key role with our referring physician. They rely on us to be navigators and advocators. So when they call M-line, they have a high expectation that they're going to assist them to get the information that they need on the first attempt. And so when we received a compliment from one of our M-line callers, after 2 compliments, we distribute to the entire team, not just the one person who received that compliment, to the entire team, a token. So if you can imagine a poker chip. So at the time, every month, we distribute those poker chips to our staff for every 2 compliments they get. And if you walk around our workspace, our staff has these fish bowls or containers of chips in their bowl. And it's like their badge of pride because those chips represent not only those compliments of the high service that they provide on a day-to-day, it gives them the encouragement. Well, I came in today having a flat tire, running out of gas, kids are sick, and this is what they're motivated. Every day they come back and say, hey, I want to go above and beyond. And so we want to recognize them, and those chips, when they cash them in, each chip is 15 minutes off. So it's a nice balance of giving them the extra time because a balance of work and family so that they can have time off without that using their PTO. But we're within the guidelines of the HRD of TOA 40 hours a year. So we manage within the HRD guidelines. But walk around, you will see those fish bowls. Many people do not cash those in because they love looking at that and knowing the great pride that it took, the effort it took to getting that fish bowl filled.
And they use it during poker night. Right?
Yeah.
That was good. Cool. Okay, next question. Do you have a recognition committee? And if you do, what has been the results or success from having this committee?
We don't have a committee. We do have an administrative group that meets monthly, and we do talk about this quite regularly, but we don't have a formal committee.
As I mentioned, we have in our Department of Otolaryngology as a whole an employee engagement and recognition committee, and they're in charge of the departmental program for recognition.
So we have, so Children's Emergency Services is part of the Department of Emergency Medicine, which essentially includes the Adult Emergency Department and the Pediatric Emergency Department. So there's one very large recognition program, and that's been somewhat of a struggle because the department is so large. But the challenge is that many of the employees work in both departments, so they don't just have one home. So if we only have one in Children's Emergency Services, there's people who come back and forth that may not get recognized. So I think that that's the challenge with having separate recognition committees in our large department. But what we've learned over time is that that actually has been very dissatisfying, and staff have really expressed a lot of concern over recognition taking a really long time when it's coming from such a large committee. That it doesn't feel very personal, and I'm also getting it from people who don't really know my work. So we've really learned that, and that's been some of the most recent feedback we've had. So just recently, Children's Emergency Services established their own recognition committee. They totally are the drivers, they're the chairs. I'm just sort of there for the whatever supplies and things, or maybe some money that they need to get things carried out. But that's been really successful in our department, and they call it the Starfish. Actually, one of their awards in the recognition committee is called the Starfish Award, but they do multiple things. They celebrate birthdays, and they celebrate each different job family and some of the special things that each job family offers to our department. So we're finding that it's important to have recognition, but it's also important to have recognition from the people who really understand your work.
We do have a peer recognition team. It's made up of 3 men. And the one thing I love about them is that they like to feed us. So they always like to coordinate some type of food activity. So we're really fortunate to have 3 super stars in our group that take a lot of care for their coworkers.
Great. So next question. What challenges have you faced in sustaining recognition in your area?
I think the biggest challenge with a group of 60 people spread out over multiple sites is getting the personalization that others have talked about. You know, what do they want? Do they want movie tickets? Do they want, you know, just food? Food always works, but sometimes hard to sustain over time. So I think it's just those challenges, is trying to keep changing it up. I always feel that stealing is the best form of compliment, so I'm probably going to steal some of the ideas I've heard up here. I know I want to thank Paula Carchi for giving us the big M's. She actually made them for us, which made it look my life easier. But just continually trying to find that new thing, I think that's the hardest part.
I think it's just sustaining that effort, and as a busy leader or just clinician person, whoever you are, taking the time to say thank you. And sometimes it's just for those day-to-day things. And then one thing that I do that I actually learned from another health system that I worked at previously was the value of writing a personal thank you note when someone has done something where they've really done that above and beyond, whether it was covering during somebody's illness, making a presentation somewhere, being extra special and kind to a patient, whatever that is, writing that personal thank you note, and not an email, and not writing a note and leaving it on their desk, but sending it to their home. And it is so highly effective. I almost to a T, whenever I will write someone a thank you note and send it out to their house, I will get an email back from them that night sometimes. Thank you for the thank you. Or they'll stop by my desk the next morning. Thank you for writing that thank you note. It made my day. So it's kind of gives back, but it's very, very validating to be very specific about what I'm thanking you for and how much I appreciate your efforts, and you're the kind of team member we want to have here for a long time to come. So those personal thank you notes are really key, and I don't do it very often, so it's kind of a special merit award when you get a personal thank you note, but it really means something to people.
So I'd say the challenges I have with sustaining recognition is probably sometimes just myself. We work in a very busy department. It's very exhausting sometimes, and we have lots of employees who need lots of things. And sometimes I find that they wear me down, and as soon as I wear down, I probably don't provide as much recognition, which I think bounces off other staff as well. So I have to stay very focused and very aware of myself and my energy level surrounding recognition, because I think what I do, other people do as well. And I would say that's probably one of my biggest personal challenges for sustaining recognition, and also watching staff wear down too. So some of our leaders, some of our champions of recognition, they get beat down a little bit sometimes too, because people don't always respond. They put in a lot of effort to sort of get this recognition going and get people excited, and some people don't participate, or some people roll their eyes and they want to quit. So you got to be standing behind those people as well to keep them going and keep pushing them as well. So.
And Kelly and I spoke a bit about this before this presentation. I think one of the challenges is just recognizing what recognition means to each individual, and what you would say to one individual might be offensive to another. Someone might receive it as recognition and acknowledging what they're doing, going above and beyond, but another might take it as, this is what I'm here to do, it's what you expect me to do, why would you call me out on it? And I think it is realizing how every person is going to receive your recognition, how they value their own contributions, and taking them to the next step and engaging them in some way. You're recognizing their skill, their expertise. How can you garner that and move the whole institution or the whole group of individuals forward and respect what they bring to the table? So I think it's recognizing them, where they are, how they're going to receive it, and if you're going to recognize them for their work, how can you take that to the next step to help them help others grow?
And also, I think, say what you really mean. Don't assume they understand you, and I think that's really important too. So yesterday, for example, I see a few people who know who I'm talking about, but yesterday my direct supervisor came down to the department. She's known that we've been really busy, and I think she was just coming to check on me, and I think it was her way of recognizing my efforts, or just by saying, hey, I know you're here, I know you're working hard, and she said to me, I'm really glad you're here today. And I thought, as opposed to any other day, as opposed to the day that, as if I wasn't here. And I knew what she meant, but I think it reminded me of how important it is to say what you mean, so that they really, I think she was saying, I really appreciate that we have you here running this department. I'm sure that's what she meant, but it reminded me about how important it is to say exactly what you mean when you do provide recognition.
I would say the biggest challenge is we're so busy, and we just don't make the time. And you really have to make the commitment. Why do you want to make the commitment? Because you'll see the end results in the employee engagement. You see many of the questions, actually a third of the questions, are related to your interactions with and the perceptions of the staff, between the relationship between the supervisor and the employee. That's why it's so important. And if you can build it in your day-to-day, and it's second nature, it's part of your culture, you don't have to schedule on your calendar. It comes naturally. It's part of your day-to-day. So as challenging as it is, make it part of who you are, part of the makeup of your management philosophy. And you'll see it in the employee engagement, because the staff will tell you They greatly, greatly appreciate how you recognize them and how you value them.
Thank you, and thank you for your candid comments. So last question. Any advice that you'd like to provide us to walk away with today?
No, I'd like to hear some from you guys.
I would say just remember that recognition comes in all forms, and I think sometimes recognition we think of typically as thanking someone or calling out something they've done really well, but I think recognition is also involving your staff in the work that you do every day and letting them participate in the decisions. And I know we don't typically think of that as recognition, but it really is recognition because you're recognizing that they make a difference and that what they have to say really contributes to the work that you're doing every day.
Anyone else? Okay. You probably captured that in the previous questions as we were going. We've covered a lot of material. So we are going to show a video clip, and it is of 4 staff. Let me jump to it. Who are going to talk about 2 recognition programs, and you're going to hear from a couple of them to tell you what that really meant when they were the recipients of one of these awards. And so this is about 3 minutes, and then we're going to return back to the panelists and open it up for questions. Working? Is it working? Ooh, wrong one. Wrong one. That's
Hi, I'm Susan Coy, part of the call center staff here. Our Tokens of Appreciation program focuses on the positive feedback we receive from our customers. So one of our staff members receives praise from and other customers. They share with the whole team via email. We also focus on team, rather than individual. So one good example of another praise would be a favorite preposition saying, "We would love to have the always want the answer." Once I had emails sent out, we did it, and then everyone put 2 emails together, people spent 2 minutes time off, so we're going to raise the token of appreciation. Like I said, that's going to be passionate for 2 minutes time off.
My name is Max Landville, and I work with the Provider Access Center here at University of Michigan. I'll help you for your physician process and your patients and you and I. I definitely love the Token of Appreciation program because not only do you get a chance to get great emails from our physician offices, but it also gives us what I had everyone's which is time off. So, I would say that amazing taking a positive and turning it to be a bigger positive for our team. So, to be honest, I just love seeing these emails because they show that they can create that for customers and also that they can connect with our team and with our physician offices.
continues to come up credit and make it difficult for us to see and detail each message. By simply changing this content point, you're making it easier for finding information. I appreciate that our mission recognizes that we are subject experts. They trust us to identify process changes, to help people work on mission, and ultimately serve our customers. I realize that it was a suggestion, has to be in that letter. I'm ready to get guys to know very well.
All right. Okay, we can grab the lights. I don't know who has those. All right. Okay. Oop. Do we have anyone here that's in that video that would stand, please? Let's give her a hand. Thanks, Joanne. It was really fun filming them. People were excited, nervous, all kinds of emotions came out, and you know, they did a beautiful job. And so look at the results of that. So thank you. I know Josie talked about it a little bit when we were asking some questions. She talked about the token of appreciation, but there's all different ways to recognize people. Recognition really begins when you hire people, and recognition shouldn't leave you when the person leaves your department. So recognition never really ends. It's a cyclical thing. So I'm going to bring the panelists back up and open it up for questions. Also, Joanne, if you come forward too. Okay, so now I know you've had time to jot down maybe a couple questions. We're going to open it up for anybody that raises their hand that has anybody or anything that they'd like to know more about. Okay, Joan.
Just, Margot, I'm picking on you.
Margot.
I like what you said about it's really a culture. It's everybody's job to recognize. Often people hear the word recognition and they think it automatically equates to an award, but it's really bigger than that. So I love what you said about that. Could you expand on that a little bit? And what do you do just for like the little everyday stuff? Not a big, here and you get a certificate and you get a that. Just what's the little everyday stuff that really makes it happen for you?
I think, like I say, it's part of the culture, and I'm extremely fortunate. My team is a small group of people, so I think that makes it much easier than having a very large group of people. So we see each other every day that we're in the office, and I think just the culture and enthusiasm that everybody has for the work that they do, for serving the patients. We often have an interesting story. We often have one of our folks that talks to people on the phone and does a lot of the scheduling, and we work with dizzy patients. They are often very anxious about coming in for testing that might make them feel worse. And so she talks them through it and has just a great way about her. We will have patients come in the office and want to meet Judy. They will say, where is Judy? I want to meet her. She was a gem. So that kind of spirals through the office then, and people talk about that patient wanted to meet Judy. So it's just a nice, like I say, we just have a nice culture, and we just foster that by recognizing each other. We do birthdays, we do those personal things as well.
Anybody else? Let's be daring. Put yourself out there.
If you don't,
oh, we do. Yeah, Joan's really good at that. That's why I have her over here.
Who funds your recognition program?
Our own department funds all the things that we do personally for people. No grants or anything special.
Our department funds our formal Bravo recognition program. I don't know the details of that, but I do know that it's department funded.
Ours is also department funded, but staff also contribute a lot to the recognition from their own personal selves as well.
We have a blend. We have department sponsored along with what we call a treat cart. So we have a cart full of treats, healthy treats, and the proceeds goes towards those luncheons, breakfast treats. So we actually self-fund our recognition, and actually we make a lot of money off that treat cart. So.
You're sure they're all healthy treats?
Comment.
Other departments do fundraisers for their recognition efforts. So like Josie mentioned, a treat card, or they'll have a lunch for the buildings, kind of buying hot dogs. And in our building, they do that a lot. And health information management. So that's a way, if you don't have a budget line, there are all kinds of fundraisers to do. Maybe not so healthy treats. You know, I know that soda is a paraphernalia here in the health system. But there's ways to raise money for your recognition efforts.
We make about $300 on a hot dog sale in NCAC. $300 goes a long way, just for one event.
I know our adult medical observation unit, they collect cans, and they have done very well with that because sometimes people just toss them away. And people do candy bar sales, which I know aren't the healthiest. But there's so many great ideas out there. Soraya.
So I actually had a question for the audience that is attending. Do you have any recognition initiatives that you've worked with, either currently or in the past, that you would like to share that you thought might be helpful for other people? Or you're because of that?
Okay. Oh, Joan, one more question?
One more. We got Josie this time.
Oh, all right.
Your idea of, your idea of rewarding the team and not the individual. There's actually a lot of research behind that. I know that suggests that's really a very, very good idea, because there are in the world recognition programs that inadvertently pit employees against each other. And so I'm assuming that's why that you chose to do that. But could you tell us, kind of how do people react to that, and at what point you made that choice?
You can't rely on one person. We're 24/7 operations, and so we have to sustain that high level of service excellence for every call. So it starts with the person you hire, your training, and then how you reward and recognition to encourage that going above and beyond on every call. So since we have 13 agents in one service, if we only relied on one or two to be superstars, we would have a 20% of excellence. So instead, we want 100% excellence. So, yep, you're right. That one or two superstar will always be recognized because people love them. They love their character, their personality, they're bubbly, so for whatever reason. But the 80% you got to worry about, that you really have to focus on. And unless you encourage team recognition, you're not going to meet that 100%.
It's cool.
So I'm going to open it up one more time. Oh, we got one other question. I see Jane. Go ahead, Jane.
I just want to ask a question on behalf of something I've heard from someone who is, why do I need to recognize them if I already paid them? What would you say?
I would say money is not the only motivator. I mean, people come to work to get a paycheck, but I think recognition is one of those intangibles that can add to the value of your paycheck. And in times when there's not big raises in a paycheck, those intangibles are even more important.
I think it's a great question, though, because we threw it out to our team one time when we've always done okay, but we really were trying to push for great. So we opened it up to when we said, what do you really want? And we had dead silence for a long time, and then one of our staff jumped up and said, "Show me the money." And that was really no one else added anything else. And so it's a very big challenge, and I think you have to sort of listen to, I've learned a lot already today just because it's those stealth things, whether it's the cards, whether it's the, people don't really think about what they want until they have it, because the only thing that they think they want is more money, or maybe the PTO. I mean, I think that was a good one too. That, time off or money are the ones that are going to sit right on top of the head. But it's these other ones that I think day in and day out. Why do I go to work? I know. I'll just share a little story from some of my family. We were talking about it earlier. Is that almost any time you go into a new culture, whether it's work or a new sports team or church or whatever, you're always end up sort of hearing, well, what's the sort of talk on the ground? Eventually people start getting into, oh, that person's this way and that person's that way. Well, if you can change that talk into something positive, you come a long way. So I think it's any of those things that you can do to create that culture that everybody spoke about.
I'll just add, what's the cost of a turnover for your organization? It's huge for us. Loss of knowledge. So that's why when the call center industry turnover is about 60%. In our call center, the only people that leave are retiring.
And speaking of turnover, I've been in areas where we talk about turnover. We've done focus groups. And money is really not the reason people leave all the time. You can go anywhere else and get a paycheck. A lot of things are tied to recognition, the return on investment, the feeling people get when they're at work. That is a big factor. Work-life balance. Those are big factors that keep people in departments. So, I liken recognition as a lot of our retirement program. We put in one, we get two. Same thing with recognition. What you put in, you get so much more return. So it's really worth that investment. So, when I first started here, they say you gotta participate in the retirement program because you're wasting money if you don't. Same thing with recognition. If you put it in, that return on investment will be double and triple.
I think there's a lot of value, and we do pay people to work, but I really like to have people engaged, and some of the best ideas come from the ground up. We as leaders need to foster that change, and it's not always top-down changes that make the most difference. Kelly mentioned we're facing really high volumes now with this respiratory surge. Our volumes in the emergency department have been up 25 to 30% above any historic period of time in the history of our department. So we've made some very significant operational changes to manage this volume, looking at our workforce, how to move people through, maintain the throughput. We operationalized those changes and very quickly asked for feedback. What's working, what's not, how can we tweak? And when that feedback came to us as leadership, we very seriously looked at it. We made some significant changes, and we saw a result. And I think one of the most valuable things for me in a leadership role to recognize that recognition isn't always about a plaque or formal acknowledgement was an email that came back to me from a provider who said, "Thank you for hearing what I said and listening to my feedback. It was very much appreciated that my feedback may change." And I think that informal recognition where you're truly recognizing their contributions to change, improvement, goes a lot further than a paycheck, because that person's engaged. And the next time we solicit feedback, they're going to be willing to stand up and look for ways to change the organization. And as a leader, you value that because your ideas should come from those having the most impact on the work up rather than top down. So I think that recognition is very important.
So we're going to conclude to give you a couple minutes to fill out your survey so we know what you would like to hear from. And I'd just like to say in service excellence, we say, if you see it, say it. Recognition's about being timely, but also really being sincere, and that we all have an opportunity to recognize someone every single moment of the day. Thank you. Oh, Jeff, I'll put that up there real quick. I didn't put this up because I didn't have everybody else's stuff, but I'll just put it up there for a second, just for people to see. And I'll send you that too. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad. So we're gonna get DVDs, so everybody will get their own. Yes, so you get your own, so make sure, before you go, I have this.
Really good.